Okay, so I'm going to show you my process chain of how I attempted to recreate Randy Rose's guitar in Crazy Train. First, I just started off with a normal Strat in Logic. I'm not a guitar player. I obviously went in and did extensive research beforehand and looked at all the equipment that Randy would have used for this recording. He used a Gibson and he also used a Marshall Plexi amp, the 1959. And I found a Emulation plugin of that amp. He usually uses another amp, but for this specific recording, he rented it at the studio that he was recording at. So it's not his traditional amp that he usually uses. However, this was the amp that he would have used. I also found a website, which I'll show you now, where it actually broke down the settings that he used for the amp, as well as his other equipment that I'll get onto in a bit. So I modulated it with the same settings, but I kept in mind that this is an emulator plugin. It's not going to sound exactly the same, as well as I'm not using a Gibson guitar with a live recording and everything. I set all these settings here, as you can see, as they are, which is what he would have done. I then went into pedal board. I'm not too familiar with pedal boards, but I looked into all of the ones that Logic supply. I messed around with the EQ to try and get the right tone, some like distortions, and then a fuzz pedal as well, which I believe just brought out that low end rawness that you can hear in the track. And then I added some distortion to get a bit of volume. So Randy Rhoads actually uses the MXR distortion pedal. Sadly, I could only find a Windows compatible plugin for that, and I'm on Mac, so I couldn't actually get the emulating plugin. There was nowhere else that was offering it on OS, so I just used the normal distortion in Logic, but I used the same settings. I noticed that that's what is lacking with my sound. I then used a tape delay, just very small amount, because it doesn't actually echo in the recording. It just adds a bit of depth to it from what I could hear anyway. And then I just added some compression and I widened it with the polyverse wider. This is just to make it feel a bit bigger. In the original recording, they had a 3-track, so there was one pan left, one pan right, and one dead center. I will play the one dead center now. So as you can hear, it's very distorted, very crunchy. So that's why I feel like the 3-track helps with the pan left and right, just to bring a bit of brightness. I also have it in a sum folder. He also uses this type of EQ, which had its settings. I've kind of copied the settings that he had on the EQ, but I've tried to go by ear instead of what the website I found said, just because I know it's a completely different scenario of recording this guitar, or of recreating this guitar. I also try to control some frequencies as well, and then I've got overall compression, because this is heavily mid EQ and a lot of distortion. So I'll play with the 3-track. And then lastly, I've got the middle Strat sent to a bus with a little bit of reverb on. I'm using the Relab Development XL480. I feel like this is quite a vintage reverb, and I also just think it is great for a plate, but I'm not pushing it too much, just because it is, I don't want to overpower it and mask a load of frequencies. So and then if you want to hear it in context with stuff that you can kind of hear in the song, I'll play some of the original track. And I'll play my version. So yeah, that was my process of recreating Randy Rose's Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne.